all, and we are going to start this new section today of King Prachini Barhi and the Prachetas. Very beautiful section. I was going through the chapter that we are going to read today, and amazing prayers by Lord Shiva. And yeah, I mean, I'll not blabber too much, so we'll get right into it. So to introduce and to uh, get us familiar with the characters within the pastime and to introduce us to the pastime itself, to give like a background, we have Nupur today, who's going to do that, who kindly agreed to do that for us. So yeah, Nupur, over to you, ma.
Thank you, Pruji. Hare Krishna, everyone. So I'll start with prayers. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaram Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च श्रीकृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि ऋषिभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लगायन्ते गिरं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणम् Hare Krishna. So we are starting this new chapter today, Canto 4, Chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. So quickly going through the introduction and the briefs of this pastime. So we last pastime we heard was about Maharaj Prithu. And now again, the conversation is still continuing between the great sage Maitreya with Vidura. So he began to speak about the sons and grandsons in the genealogical dynasty, in the genealogical line of King Prithu. So from text 1 to 13 in this pastime, he talks about like how this. Just a second, I'll share my screen. So he shares like how this progeny tree goes down to the Prachetas. So starting with King Prithu, so he had his eldest son Vijitashva, which about whom we saw how he stopped King Indra from taking away the final horse. So Vijitashva, he was the eldest son of King Prithu, and he was affectionate towards his younger brother. So he offered the different parts of the world to his brothers to rule. And then he had three sons. He was also known as Antardhana. So Antardhana means invisible, sorry, it means disappearance. So King Prithu, so when Indra was trying to steal the last horse of King Prithu, so he was not visible to everyone. Only like some people could see him. Vijitashva was able to see him, but he still did not attack him because he was able to figure out that he's not an ordinary thief. So he perfectly understood that well. And since Indra was great and powerful demigod and servant of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vijitashva, he purposefully excused him due to sentiment only. even though King Indra was acting wrongly. So Indra was very pleased with Vijitashva at that time, and hence he gave him the name Antardhana. And after that, so Maharaj Antardhana, who's also Vijitashva, it's the same name. So he got three sons with his wife. The name of those sons were Pavaka, Pavamana, and Shuchi. And these sons were formerly the demigods of fire, but due to the curse, they became the sons of Maharaj Antardhana. And then he had another wife with whom he had another son, Avirdhan. And talking about like we'll continue about Havardhan. And before that, Antardhan, he was Maharaj Antardhan. He was very liberal. He didn't kill Indra, but at the same time, since he was the king, he had to perform his royal duties and he had to exact taxes, punish his citizens. And sometimes, like the king has to perform duties which are not very desirable. He was not happy like doing those. It is similarly related to Arjun as well. He was not willing to fight because fighting or killing one's own kinsmen or family members, it's not desirable at all. So similarly, King Antardhana, he was not very happy to punish his citizens or exact taxes from his citizens. So therefore, he retired from the royal majestic powers at that time at very early age. So he engaged in performing sacrifices. So, like Maharaj Prithu, he was also engaged in performing sacrifices. But internally, Antardhan, he was very realized soul, and he knew that he surrendered to Supreme Personality of Godhead, who eradicates all the fears of his devotees. So, by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Antardhan, he attained his the Supreme Personality of Godhead's planets very easily. Coming to Havardhan back again, so just to make sure that we all are in the same line, let me if you are able to see this. Proji, can you see this?
Yes, yes.
So this is not best version of flowchart that can be
Really
presented
cute.
for this.
Really
So
cute.
Maharaj Prithu, so his son Vidyutashva, who is also known as Antardhan, which means disappearance. And with Shikandini, one of his wife, he got these three children, Pavaka, Pavamana, and Shuchi. These were formerly demigods of fire, but due to the curse, they were begotten as sons to Antardhan and Shikandini. And then with his another wife, Nabaswati, he got another son who was Havardhan. So Havardhan, with his wife Havardhani, he gave birth to six sons. Bharishat, Gaya, Shukla, Krishna, Satya, and Jitavrata. So Maharaj, like the Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya, he was talking to Vidura that Havardhan, very powerful son. So he had very powerful son who was named as Bharishat, and he was expert in performing various kind of fruitive sacrifices, and he was also expert in practice of mystic yoga as well. So, because of these qualities, he was known to be Prajapati. So, Prabhupada in his purport explains that in the beginning of creation, there were not many living entities, and consequently, very powerful living entities or demigods, they were appointed as Prajapatis in order to beget children and increase the population. And there are many Prajapatis like Brahma, Daksha, and Manu, and they are sometimes known as Prajapati. And similarly, Barishat, the son of Havardhana, he became one of those. So he executed many sacrifices all over the world. He scattered kusha grass and kept the tops of grasses, sorry, pointed eastwards. So Prabhupada in this purport, in the purport of text 10, he explains that how Barishat was dived very deeply into the fruitive activity of sacrifices. It wasn't that he would perform one sacrifice or wait. He just performed sacrifices one after the another. So he mentions at the present moment, we do not have that capability that we keep on performing sacrifices. So Barishat was doing like one after the another. It gets tough for us to do even one sacrifice. So in this again, he Prabhupada emphasizes on Sankirtan Yagya, like many thousands of people they take part in it. Even some people like so he mentions how it is important to engage ourselves in Sankirtan Yagya one after another. And he says that either jokingly or seriously, people if people are introduced to chanting, if the he exactly what he mentions is if the surface of the globe is overflooded with the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, the people of the world will be very, very happy. And even if they chant jokingly or seriously, the effect of vibrating this transcendental sound will be equally distributed. So after this, so Varishat, he was also known as Prachina Vari, and then with Shatadruti, he got 10 sons, Prachetas, about Shatadruti. So, in from text 11 to 13, from 11 and 12 basically are being talking about how beautiful Shatadruti was and about her bodily features and how even the demigods were like everyone around her, even Agni, like around whom Barishat and Shatadruti were circumambulating, how they were so attracted to Shatadruti. So Prabhupada in his purport, he mentions that how lust is such a powerful emotion that it's so strong in all the living entities that nobody remains, like everyone is obliged to this lust, this emotion of lust, and how just only a devotee of Lord who is attracted by Krishna can escape this emotion. And once attracted by Krishna, the illusionary energy of the world or the lust cannot attract that person. So after that, from text 1 to 13, it was about prachetas. And after that, it is explained how the prachetas, they left home and went to like they left home after the instruction from their father, and they reached one place that looked like an ocean, that is explained like an ocean. And it is very beautifully explained that so at that place they met Lord Shiva, who out of great mercy instructed them about the absolute truth. And all the sons of the Prachinavari, they meditated upon the instructions of Lord Shiva. They chanting and worshipping those instructions with great care and attention. So in this case, Prabhupada mentions about how one has to be guided by spiritual master. So Lord Shiva was no less than spiritual master to all the Prachetas. And it is clearly stated that the 10 sons of Prachinavari, they were favored by Lord Shiva, by the parents of Lord Shiva, who out of great kindness, which we'll see, which Jagannath Gopal Prabhu is going to cover, how Lord Shiva gave them great instructions regarding execution of austerities. He became their spiritual master, and in turn, his disciples, the Prachetas, they took his words so seriously, and simply by meditating upon his instructions, they became perfect. So, Prabhupada mentions that this is the secret of success as well. So, after being initiated, receiving the orders of spiritual master, disciples should unhesitatingly think about the instructions or the orders of spiritual master and should not allow him to be disturbed by anything else. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well, he explains that order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. The disciple should not consider whether he's going back home or not. His first business should be to execute the order of his spiritual master. So this one thing Prabhupada mentions in context of Lord Shiva instructing the Prachetas. And then there are questions by Vidura, like he's curious to know like why did Prachetas they met Lord Shiva on the way, and what was happening, how Lord Shiva became very pleased, how he instructed them. So about this, Prabhupada mentions again one more thing, that there are some important talks between a devotee and the Lord, or between exalted devotees. So one should be very much curious to hear those, like in the Naimisharanya, at the Naimisharanya meeting. Sutta Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to all the great sages. So Shuta Goswami, he also spoke about talks between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami. So because the sages, they believe that the conversation that happened between Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit must have been very important. And similarly, the conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. So Prabhupada mentions that everyone is still eager to learn the subject of Bhagavad Gita. So Vidura was similarly eager to learn like what happened, how what were the talks between Lord Shiva and Prachetas. And he continues to express his curiosity to know more. Like it's so difficult to get for one to have personal contact with Lord Shiva. So he wants to know like what happened, how Lord Shiva was very pleased and came in front of the Prachetas. And then Lord Shiva, we know about him that he's the most powerful demigod, and Vaishnavam Yatha Shambhu. So he's second only to Lord Vishnu. Is he's self-sufficient and he has nothing to do, nothing to aspire for in the material world. So all of this is provided in the verses, like how, and Prabhupada also explains it very nicely how Lord Shiva is merciful to his devotees and how worshipping like how the instructions of Lord Shiva helped Prachetas to gain the mercy of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the sage Maitreya, he goes on talking about Prachetas, how they like very seriously accepted the word of their father first with their heart and soul that they left, and with these words on their head they went towards to the west to execute their father's orders. And when they left home to they saw this a great reservoir of water, which was as big as ocean, and it is explained very nicely, like that water of this lake was so calm and quiet, like the mind of great soul. So, in the purport of this, Prabhupada has very nicely explained how the mind of a pure devotee is supposed to be. I won't go to details, but I would really suggest to read the purport. It's text 20. So, Prabhupada talks about how they are not agitated by small things and how clear the mind of great devotee or pure devotees are. And yeah, then there are explanations of how beautiful the ocean was, the lotus, the different kind of lotus, the different kind of birds. So just like there are different kind of humans under different modes of nature, there it's the same for the birds and flowers. And yeah, so Lord Shiva then it's like mentioned how Lord Shiva he became very pleased. Generally, he is the protector of pious persons and persons of gentle behavior, and therefore he was very much pleased with the princess. And then he began to speak. He said, "You are all sons of King Prachinabari, and I wish all good fortune to you. I also know what you are going to do, and therefore I'm visible to you, just to show my mercy upon you." In the purport again, Prabhupada mentions that how Lord Shiva here indicates that it was known to him what they were going to do. They were going to worship Lord Vishnu by severe austerities and penances. And knowing this fact, this was the reason why he was so merciful and pleased with him, because he knew that they were going to worship Lord Vishnu. So this is further like Lord Shiva continues to say that any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to him. Again, there has been like Prabhupada explains very nicely about Lord Shiva in the purport of these texts. So yeah, I'll suggest to go through these. And yeah, he mentions that you all are devotees of the Lord, and he like mentions he how the devotees respect him and how he's dear to the devotees, and no one can be. He says that no one can be as dear to the devotees as I am. So he's really merciful. And then lastly, just last verses 31 and 32, before Jagannath Gopal Prabhu continues. So Lord Shiva he mentions that he gives one mantra And he says that I shall chant one mantra which is not only transcendental, pure, and auspicious, but it is the best prayer for anyone who is aspiring to attain the ultimate goal of life. When I chant this mantra, tells the prachetas to hear it carefully and attentively. And out of causeless mercy, a great devotee of Lord Narayan, he continued to speak. Now will be the prayers. So just last thing about mantra, the so Lord Shiva, he gave the he voluntarily came and blessed the sons of the king, and he gave them the mantra. So one thing Prabhupada mentions about the mantra, so when a mantra is chanted by a great devotee, the mantra becomes even more powerful. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is powerful in itself, but when it is given by the spiritual master to his disciple upon initiation, the mantra chanted by the spiritual master, it becomes even more powerful. So yeah, this was the last thing I wanted to mention. Over to you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu.
Thank you, Ma.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So beautifully covered, and you know, hit the nail with all the points that Prabhupada mentions in the purports. And yeah, this was indeed a very nice introduction. And that family tree, I know you, despite not having much time, you still made that family tree, which was really so beautiful, so cute. But yeah, thank you so much. This was the much needed background for us. And yeah, as Nupur mentioned, dear devotees, now this is the point where Lord Shiva is going to, he's appeared to the Prachetas, who are really devoted servants of the Lord. And to elevate them, Lord Shiva, like their spiritual master, is going to give them this mantra. And it's a stotra actually. It contains many verses, and these verses are very philosophical in nature also. So let me wait. What? Zoom bypass system private window picker and directly access your audio screen and audio. Okay, I'll just say allow for 1 month. Can you see my screen? The verses?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So these were, so these prayers, you know, one thing I had shared this with some devotees that you know, we say prayers are very important, prayers to the Lord, you know, they are an expression of love and all that. But it's interesting that the content of those prayers, yes, the mood of those prayers is of devotion, but the content of those prayers is very often a lot of philosophy, a lot of, you know, technical details, philosophy, and things of that nature. A very interesting thing. I think I was sharing with Nupur, you know, how, you know, philosophy and technicalities, they have a role when done in the backdrop of bhakti. So that is what the prayers of Bhagavatam are. They, the content may sound very technical, but then the backdrop, the mood is of pure love that these devotees exhibit. So with that in mind, and also in these prayers by Lord Shiva, this stotra, the form of the Lord is described. So as devotees are reading these prayers, if we can, you know, try to try to really form a picture of the Lord, or, you know, even for that matter, have a picture of Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan in front of us, and when the verses are being read, if we can contemplate on those verses, the form of the Lord, then that will give us much benefit here, because really beautifully described form of the Lord. So yeah, with that, we'll move on to the verses themselves. And we'll be covering verses text 33 to text 79. So there are like 33, 43, 53, 63, 73. So that is 51 verses plus 79. You know, kitna? 7 more verses, 6 more verses, right? So 51 plus 6 is 57. So we can do like maybe 20 verses each devotee. So yeah, anyone wants to go first? They can go from text 33 to text 52. Yeah. No, is that right? Yeah, that's right. Yes, Nitya Mataji. Actually, just one sec. Let me think. 53, 53, 63. Sorry, there are 47 verses. You can do 15, Mataji. Yeah. 33 to 57. Sorry, 47. 33 to 47. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all perfect instructions you give. You are the super soul. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you as a supreme living being. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. My dear Lord, you are the origin. Sorry.
Sorry, is the screen visible, Mataji?
Yes, I'm also zooming, so I guess it keeps.
Oh, sorry. Should I zoom in? I can zoom in.
It's okay, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where were we?
37.
My dear Lord, yeah.
I
7,
think
huh?
you're the origin, somewhere like that.
Oh, yeah, you are the authority. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I guess so 37. I'll just read from my own thing so that you don't have to worry
Oh,
about
sure, Mataji. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it. Okay. My Lord. Um,
It was
It's
verse
text
35 that
35.
But
35.
you're the origin. Yes.
origin.
Yeah.
Yes.
My dear Lord, you're the origin of the subtle material ingredients, the master of all integration as well as the master of all disintegration, the predominating deity named Sankarshana, and the master of all intelligence known as the predominating deity Pradyumna. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My Lord, as a supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarshana because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitralokas as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all the 3 Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the um, original. Oh, I think you went.
I think you missed one, Mataji, the one before that. But yeah, you can read that and then continue from 39 after this.
Okay. Let me I'll take 10 seconds to just switch to my view because I didn't want to waste time. That's why I
No worries, Mataji. Please take your time.
420, 430. I should read from the authority, right?
37. Yes.
37. My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are open. You're always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen, which is like gold, and thus in the form of fire, you help the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitralokas as well as the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all the 3 Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the 3 worlds, and as such, you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My dear Lord, By expanding your transcendental vibrations, you reveal the actual meaning of everything. You are the all pervading sky within and without, and you are the ultimate goal of pious activities executed both within this material world and beyond it. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you. My dear Lord, you are the viewer of the results of pious activities. You are inclination, disinclination, and the resultant activities. You are the cause of the miserable conditions of life caused by irreligion, and therefore you are death. I offer my respectful obeisances. My dear Lord, you are the topmost of all the bestowers of all benediction, the oldest and the supreme enjoyer amongst all enjoyers. You are the master of all the world's metaphysical philosophy. And for you, for you are the supreme cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. You are the greatest of all religious principles, the supreme mind, and you have a brain which is never checked by any condition. Therefore, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you. My dear Lord, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities, and results of sense activities, karma. Therefore, you are the controller of the body, mind, and senses. You are also the supreme controller of egotism, known as Rudra. You are the source of knowledge and the activities of Vedic injunctions. My dear Lord, I wish to see you exactly in the form that your very dear devotees worship. You have many other forms, but I wish to see your form that is especially liked by the devotees. Please be merciful upon me and show me that form, or only that form worshipped by the devotees can perfectly satisfy all the demands of the senses. The Lord's beauty resembles a dark cloud during the rainy season. As the rainfall glistens, his bodily features also glisten. Indeed, he is a sum total of all beauty. The Lord has 4 arms and an exquisitely beautiful face with eyes like lotus petals, a beautiful, highly raised nose, a mind attracting smile, a beautiful forehead, and equally beautiful and fully decorated ears. Should I read 47, 48 together?
Yeah,
And
sure, Mataji. Yeah.
the Lord is super excellently beautiful on account of his open and merciful smile and his sidelong glance upon his devotees. His black hair is curly, and his garments, waving in the wind, appear like flying saffron pollen from lotus flowers. His glittering earrings, shining helmet, bangles, garland, ankle bells, waist belt, and various other bodily ornaments combined with conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower to increase the natural beauty of the Kaustuba pearl on his chest. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Vishal Prabhu can go till 64.
The Lord has shoulders just like a lion. Upon these shoulders are garlands, necklaces, and epaulets, and all of these are always glittering. Besides these, there is the beauty of the Kaustubha pearl, and on the dark chest of the Lord there are streaks named Srivatsa, which are signs of the goddess of fortune. The glittering of these streaks excels the beauty of the golden streaks on a gold testing stone. Indeed, such beauty defeats a gold testing stone. The Lord's abdomen is beautiful due to 3 ripples in the flesh. Being so round, his abdomen resembles the leaf of a banyan tree, and when he exhales and inhales, the movement of the ripples appear very, very beautiful. The coils within the navel of the Lord are so deep that it appears that the entire universe sprouted out of it, and yet again wishes to go back. The lower part of the Lord's waist is dark and covered with yellow garments, and a belt bedecked with golden embroidery work. His symmetrical lotus feet and the calves, thighs, and joints of his legs are extraordinarily beautiful. Indeed, the Lord's entire body appears to be well built. My dear Lord, your 2 lotus feet are so beautiful that they appear like 2 blossoming petals of the lotus flower, which grows during the autumn season. Indeed, the nails of your lotus feet emanate such a great effulgence that they immediately dissipate all the darkness in the heart of a conditioned soul. My dear Lord, kindly show me that form of yours, which always dissipates all kinds of darkness in the heart of a devotee. My dear Lord, you are the supreme spiritual master of everyone. Therefore, all conditioned souls covered with the darkness of ignorance can be enlightened by you as the spiritual master. My dear Lord, those who desire to purify their existence must always engage in meditation upon your lotus feet, as described above. Those who are serious about executing their occupational duties and who want freedom from fear must take to this process of bhakti yoga. My dear Lord, the king in charge of the heavenly kingdom is also desirous of obtaining the ultimate goal of life, the devotional service. Similarly, you are the ultimate destination of those who identify themselves with you. Aham Brahmasmi. However, it is very difficult for them to attain you, whereas a devotee can very easily attain your lordship. My dear Lord, pure devotional service is even difficult for liberated persons to discharge, but devotional service alone can satisfy you. Who will take to the other processes of self realization if he is actually serious about the perfection of life? Simply by expansion of his eyebrows, invincible time personified can immediately vanquish the entire universe. However, formidable time does not approach the devotee who has taken complete shelter at your lotus feet. If one by chance associates with the devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he has longer he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma and jnana. What interest then can he have in the benedictions of the demigods who are subject to the laws of birth and death? My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the cause of all auspicious things and the destroyer of all the contamination of sin. I therefore beg your Lordship to bless me by the association of your devotees who are completely purified by worshipping your lotus feet and who are so merciful upon the conditioned soul. I think that your real benediction will be to allow me to associate with such devotees. The devotee whose heart has been completely cleansed by the process of devotional service and who is favored by Bhakti Devi does not become bewildered by the external energy, which is just like a dark well. Being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your name, fame, form, activities, etc. My dear Lord, the impersonal Brahman spreads everywhere, like the sunshine or the sky. And that impersonal Brahman, which spreads throughout the universe and in which the entire universe is manifested, is you. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you have also created this cosmic manifestation. And although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you are never disturbed by such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them, and therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different or separate from you. My Lord, you are always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. My dear Lord, your your universal form consists of five elements: the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is material, and the Paramatma, your partial expansion, who is the director of everything. Yogis, other than the devotees, namely the Karma Yogi and the Jnana Yogi, worship you by their respective actions in their respective positions. It is stated both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries of the Vedas, and indeed everywhere, that it is only you who are to be worshipped. This is the expert version of all the Vedas. My dear Lord, you're the only supreme person, the cause of all causes. Before the creation of this material world, your material energy remains in a dormant condition. When your material energy is agitated, the three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, act, and as a result, the total material energy, egotism, ether, air, fire, water, earth, and all the various demigods and saintly persons become manifest. Thus, the material world is created. My dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation in four kinds of forms. Being within the heart of all the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so called happiness of the material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honeycomb.
Thank you, Prabhu. Megha Mataji, you can complete the chapter.
My dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. The force of time is very strong, and everything is being destroyed by something else, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Time scatters everything, exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they are always busy with the desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity, but your Lordship is always alert. And in due course of time, you strike him, just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. Can you go down, Prabhu? My dear Lord,
Yes.
all actually learned persons know you as the supreme Brahman and the super soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learner devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. My dear sons of the king, just execute your occupational duty as kings with a pure heart. Just chant this prayer, fixing your mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. That will bring you all good fortune, for the Lord will be very much pleased with you. Can you go down, Prabhu? Therefore, O son of king, the supreme personality of Godhead, Hari, is situated in everyone's heart. He is also within your hearts. Therefore, chant the glories of the Lord and always meditate upon his continuously. My dear princess, in the form of a prayer, I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your minds and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. This prayer was first spoken to us by Lord Brahma, the master of all creators. The creators, headed by Brigu, were instructed in these prayers because they wanted to create. When all Prajapatis were ordered to create by Lord Brahma, we chanted these prayers in praise of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and became completely free from all ignorance. Thus, we were able to create different types of living entities. A devotee of Lord Krishna, whose mind is always absorbed in him, who with great attention and reverence chants this stotra, will achieve the greatest perfection of life without delay. In this material world, there are different types of achievement. But of all of them, the achievement of knowledge is considered to be the highest because one can cross the ocean of nescience only on the boat of knowledge. Otherwise, the ocean is impassable. Although rendering devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worshipping Him are very difficult, if one vibrates or simply reads his stotra, composed and sung by me, he will very easily be able to invoke the mercy of Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the dearmost objective of all auspicious benedictions. A human being who sings this song sung by me can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee, being fixed in the Lord's devotional service, can acquire whatever he wants from the Supreme Lord. A devotee who rises early in the morning and with folded hands chants these prayers sung by Lord Shiva and gives facility to others to hear them certainly becomes free from all bondage of fruitive activities. My dear son, my dear sons of the king, The prayers I have recited to you are meant for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul. I advise you to recite these prayers, which are as effective as great austerities. In this way, when you are mature, your life will be successful, and you will certainly achieve all your desired objectives without fail.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you, all the devotees who read. Very beautiful. So, I mean, as you saw, there is a lot of content in these prayers in this stotra by Lord Shiva, and every verse almost, yeah, I think every verse has a purport by Prabhupada, and some purports are like really long, and Prabhupada touches upon so many themes in all these purports, right? So, and yeah, as we saw, there is a lot of technical knowledge here initially about, Lord Shiva is praying to the various manifestations of the Supreme Lord, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, etc. So that his intelligence and the senses and the mind, because all these different manifestations of the Lord are in charge of these different faculties of human beings. And then he's praying to them. Then he's praying that, he's describing the Lord, how the creation is happening and things like that. Then in other parts, he's also um, describing the form of the Lord in much detail. So that is another very beautiful aspect of this. And in yet another part, he's praying that he gets the association of devotees. So he's praying for that as well, right? So there are so many themes that come about in this chapter, in the prayers of the Lord, right? So let's try to, um, I've not taken all the themes because so I thought of breaking down this chapter into multiple sessions, but then since this was one stotra, I didn't want to break that stotra up into multiple sessions. So then I thought, okay, let's just do the whole stotra. At least that way we'll get the benefit of chanting the whole stotra in one go. Just like they say, Hare Krishna mantra also doesn't I mean, it should not be cut, and like there are some kirtaniyas that do it, but then there is some backlash, right? When that you can't, if you start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, complete it completely, only then don't chant like Hare Krishna and leave it at that, or break it up like that. So but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, to begin with, I was thinking, in and this I just thought when we started reading these verses, right? Let me start the slideshow, and let me go back and share my screen again. uh, Google Chrome share. Yeah, sorry. So here in text, in the very beginning itself, Lord Shiva is addressing the Lord as, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. No, so here this point about auspiciousness is being talked about. And this happens in all, especially in Vedic ceremonies that are performed in India, that there is invocation of auspiciousness, correct? And even we when we start like just today, when we started discussing, when Nupur started introducing the pastime, she said prayers, right? So they are supposed to invoke auspiciousness. So I just wanted to, open it up for discussion and ask, what does auspiciousness mean to you, right? Auspiciousness can mean many things. I saw the dictionary definition of auspiciousness, which means, conducive to success, right? So is there any other what do you think is auspicious, right? Is a question for all of you.
One thing I could think of is like blessings,
Hmm.
um, like having the having auspiciousness means to have all the blessings from, we always believe that wherever the holy names are sung or the yajna is performed, all the demigods are present. So blessings from them or blessings from the elders, senior devotees, like that.
Right, blessings. Yeah, beautiful. Definitely, blessings invoke auspiciousness. They bring about a lot of goodness everywhere. So, in fact, the 6 characteristics of bhakti. The first one is kleshagni. Kleshagni is the destruction of kleshas, or that is kleshagni, and it specifically points to the destruction of our karma, of our karmic reactions. And then kleshagni, and then the immediately the one that follows that, results of bhakti, is shubhada, or auspiciousness, right? That, yes, and auspiciousness is invoked by the blessings of elders, by blessings of pure devotees in many ways. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Any other thoughts on auspiciousness?
One thing I can think of is invoking the intention, like the pure intention of love and affection as we read through and understand the subject matter. We are not caught up into just material way of understanding it and actually getting into that service mode with sincere love and devotion to get into that mood.
Yeah, yeah. When we invoke auspiciousness in the beginning of any activity, yes, we set the intention, we set the purity of our intention in the beginning, so that 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 goodness of intention is carried throughout the activity or the vidhi that is being performed. So yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nitya Mataji. Thank you, Ritesh Prabhu. So we'll move on to the next, theme here. Wait, why am I? Yeah. So the form of the Lord is being described here in these verses in quite a bit of detail, and Prabhupada also writes about the form in his purports. So actually, I guess now that everybody read the verses, I could see that there are few verses describing the form. There are more verses describing the technicality. But then I think for me, this kind of the form of the Lord, the description of the form of the Lord stood out because Prabhupada is focusing a lot on the purports, a lot on it on in his purports. But in any case, this is what I wanted to, this is again a very basic question, but a philosophical question that does get asked to us often, right? Oh, why are you worshipping stones and things like that, right? So we see very beautiful forms in the world as well, right? So and we are often captivated by those beautiful forms, whatever they may be, the form of a person, or the form of the nature around us, and the form of a car for that matter. We find these things as attractive, right? But at the same time, we are told that the form of the Lord in the temple is also very attractive, right? So now both these things are attractive, right? There is attraction in both the places. But then what is the difference between the form of the Lord in the temple and the beautiful forms that we see within this world, right? If somebody were to ask you this question, like, hey, why do you worship this stone? What's there in this stone? Yeah, agreed, it's beautifully decorated, but what's there in it, right? So how would we answer that for our own faith as well as, to convince someone? Any thoughts on this? So one thing someone would say, we could say, is, this is a spiritual form, right? But then what does it mean by spiritual form? You know, if we had to elaborate on that. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was just thinking from your initial part of the question, the material forms that we see in the world definitely comes from the Lord, and but it may not take us to the Lord. This is again quoting CCP, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Um, so there are many Krishna is all attractive, meaning is all attractive, and whatever we see attractive around the world, we may think that I mean it's a fact also that it all emanates from Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. So the beauty that is there in any, if somebody is looking beautiful, or if a mountain is looking beautiful, or if the formation of the clouds in the sky is beautiful during sunset, we can see that that beauty is from Krishna. But if we get caught up in that form, then it may not take us to Krishna. But the Lord in the temple is where, is also attractive. And by looking at the form of the Lord, it we get attracted by the Lord's form, and also that attraction will eventually take us to Him.
Right. So there are, yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. And CCP famously says, everything attractive comes from Krishna, but everything attractive doesn't take us back to Krishna. So very, very nice point there. Yeah. So I guess in terms of this, we could say that um, the form of the Lord in the temple is something that uplifts us, right? And the form of the beautiful forms of this world, when seen as divorced from the beauty of Krishna, from the splendor of Krishna, right? They will actually drag us down. And actually, this is I was in a Kartik Yatra once in Udupi, and Vishwesh Tirtha Swami of Pechawar Mutt, he was there, and Maharaj requested him to speak, and he was speaking, and he was mentioning that between the earth and between Lord Krishna, one thing is common, that is attraction. The earth attracts. He was referring to gravity, or rather, he was referring to the attractive things in this world, right? And then Krishna also attracts. But what is the difference between the two attractions, right? He said the attraction of the earth is such that if somebody is going up, it pulls that person down. But the attraction of Krishna is such that if somebody is going down, that attraction to Krishna uplifts him, pulls him up. That was a beautiful point that he made there. Yeah. So the form of the Lord in the temple, the deity form, it uplifts, whereas the forms of this world, they drag us down. Yeah. Yes, Ritesh Prabhu. Yes.
Yeah, just following up on what you were saying. So the beautiful like material forms actually make us move to other beautiful material forms. Like there is not like there is an absorption in the material form, but when we see the form of the Lord, it kind of keeps us absorbed into that, and it kind of increases. So it's not like we are like, for material form, there can be like diminishing return, or like, oh, you want more or you want something different once you have it. But when you have the spiritual form of Lord, you just want to be with it, stay with it, and absorb in it. So it's like it kind of steals your mind rather than move agitating your mind to want more or to move from one subject to another. Yeah.
Yeah. Very beautiful, Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, yes, that is one point I was also looking for, that, the forms in the material world and the pleasure that they bring us, it's temporary in nature, right? It, yeah, we the pleasure is not something that is sublime, and that is forever. Eventually it fades away. Law of diminishing returns, as you mentioned. But then contrasting that with the form of the Lord in the temple, right? Yeah, that really captivates our heart, and it makes us. In fact, actually, I would say that also makes us want more, right? That also taking darshan of the form of the Lord in the temple also makes us want to take more darshan. More we want to see the Lord and like that. But then that pleasure that we get is always newer and newer. It's not that
Yeah,
that pleasure is fading away more
yeah,
with time as we take more and more darshan. Yeah, that is really nice. That is one more.
yeah. I think it takes us to the depth of our being versus material forms just takes us outside and just wants to look external a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Megha Mataji, you have something to say?
Actually, Prabhu, this is a very nice question, and I think I always have this question. Although I have heard so many explanations, but I've never gotten a satisfying response.
Mm,
So, my first question is like, for everything attractive comes from Krishna, but it doesn't take us to Krishna.
yeah.
Like, my question is why? And then also, second is, like, isn't it like if someone is realized, if they know like everything is coming from Krishna,
Mm,
then in a way, if they remember this all the time, then everything will sort of take them towards Krishna.
yeah. Yes, that's a very good point, Mataji. I'm glad you brought it up. So I guess um, that statement by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, right? Everything attractive comes from Krishna, but everything attractive doesn't take us to Krishna. Actually, there is an important, I guess, term there. It can be that, everything attractive comes from Krishna, but everything attractive doesn't necessarily take us to Krishna. So yeah, I mean, it's not that any beauty in the material world will definitely not take us to Krishna. That is definitely not the case. And as you mentioned, for someone who is self-realized, they do actually see the world exactly like you mentioned. They see the forms of this world and they remember Krishna through that. And that is, when we say, right, a pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere. Everywhere the pure devotee sees, he sees Krishna. Now that is not like a it's not that everywhere a pure devotee looks, he sees Krishna dancing with his flute, and performing Ras Leela. No, that is not what is meant by seeing Krishna everywhere. But what seeing Krishna everywhere means, this is one of the explanations that I heard, is that when a pure devotee sees anything around him, he connects that to Krishna. He or she connects that to Krishna and thinks of how how this thing can be used in the service of Krishna, or they praise that, and then they say that, oh wow, this is so nice. This is There are instances of Prabhupada also mentioning that. I don't remember those instances, but I definitely have heard such instances when somebody is praising the nature, then Prabhupada is saying whose nature, this is Krishna. So just like this is so beautiful, Krishna is also in fact, in this in one of the purports here, we say, right, Krishna's color is like it's like the clouds, the what is that, monsoon clouds. So I was seeing something really interesting here. Yes. So here, this in this verse 44, 45, 46, it says, "The Lord's beauty resembles a dark cloud during the rainy season. As the rainfall glistens, his body features also glisten." Okay. And then in the purport, Prabhupada begins the purport in a very, cryptic way. He doesn't say anything about the form of the Lord. He just says, after the scorching heat of the summer season, it is very pleasing to see the dark clouds in the sky. That's it. And then he says, he quotes Brahma Samhita and everything. So I was thinking about this. Why does Prabhupada suddenly say this, which is kind of cryptic, and then he continues with the purport. So the scorching heat of the summer season is when we really are fatigued by that, and then when we see dark clouds in the sky, it is pleasing. So yes, for a devotee, when a devotee sees dark clouds in the sky, the devotee suddenly remembers Krishna. Oh, this is Krishna's color. Yes, that is very true. So what you said about a pure devotee seeing, Krishna in the things of this world is very true. Now the problem is when we see the attractive forms in the world and we think that they are for our own enjoyment, selfish enjoyment and nothing else. That is the problem. Then that form doesn't take us to Krishna. Then that form binds us into karma, binds us into more and more karma. So that is the point, that is what is meant by not all forms in this world take us to Krishna. So like that.
Thank you.
Is that okay? You can ask more questions, Mataji. No worries. And if there are any other thoughts, dear devotees, please share on this question. Right.
Yeah, it's a very beautifully explained, Prabhu. And also, Arjuna asks this similar question, right, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, like how do I see you? Where, like, how do I constantly think about you? And then Krishna starts explaining, um, various things that we see around us, of the, like sages, I'm the Narada; of the horses, I'm this; of the weapons, I'm this; and of the mountains, I'm this mountain. And so this is just to um show that we can see and remember. So the main motto is to always remember and to not forget Krishna, right? So, and if we are able to successfully do that, I think that will definitely take us to Krishna. And like what Jagannath Gopal Prabhu said, if we get caught up in the action of it and not remember the source of where it came from, then it will bind us. And once it's bound, we have to come back here again, and that will not take us closer to Krishna. So yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, that's actually very pertinent. And so the 10th chapter comes after 9.34, which is Manmana Bhav Mad Bhakto. So Krishna is saying, remember me always, worship me, offer your homage unto me, things like that. And then, so this, I think Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that when Krishna says that, then Arjuna starts thinking that this is good, but then how do I do that living in this world? And that is why Krishna speaks the 10th chapter, wherein he's mentioning all these things of the trees, I am the banyan tree; of the humans, I am the king; of the archers, I am Arjuna; of the demons, I am Prahlad, and things like that. So whatever best is there in the world around us, we can think that that is us but a spark. And then Krishna describes all this and then says that all these things, whatever attractive things that you see around you, are just sparks of my splendor. Krishna says they are like insignificant sparks of my splendor. So that kind of prods us into thinking how beautiful Krishna could be, how attractive would Krishna himself be, like that. Yes. So thank you, dear devotees. If there are no other thoughts on this, we can go ahead. So this is another another interesting thing that comes in one of the purports where Prabhupada is describing the form of the Lord, and there the topic comes about Pancharatriki Vidhi and Bhagavad Vidhi. So I'll just read out that purport and then we'll yes. So here it says, generally, the worship of the Lord begins with the worship of Narayan or Vishnu, whereas the worship of Lord Krishna and Radha is most confidential. Lord Narayan is worshipable by Pancharatrika Vidhi or regulative principles. So, Pancharatrika Vidhi means regulative principles. There are certain rules and regulations, certain defined rules and regulations that you have to worship like this, you have to do this, you have to do that, and things like that. Whereas Lord Krishna is worshipable by the Bhagavad Vidhi. So Bhagavad Vidhi is more spontaneous, right? I don't even know what Bhagavad Vidhi is. I've never seen anyone worship in Bhagavad Vidhi, and neither have I worshipped in Bhagavad Vidhi ever. No one can worship the Lord in the Bhagavad Vidhi without going through the regulations of Pancharatrika Vidhi. Actually, neophyte devotees worship the Lord according to the Pancharatrika Vidhi or the regulative principles enjoined in Narada Pancharatra. Radha Krishna cannot be approached by the neophyte devotees. Therefore, temple worship, according to regulative principles, is offered to Lakshmi Narayan. Although, now this is very interesting, although there may be a Radha Krishna Vigraha or form, the worship of the neophyte devotee is acceptable as Lakshmi Narayan worship. So, worship according to the Pancharatrika Vidhi is called Vidhi Marga, and worship according to Bhagavad Vidhi is called Raga Marga. The principles of Raga Marga are especially meant for devotees who are elevated to the Vrindavan platform. So this is a something that Prabhupada mentions. Again, this can be a little technical, but it's important to know that we follow these rules and regulations. So I wanted to zoom out of this and come to the point about rules and regulations, right? We have certain rules and regulations within our bhakti. Of course, this talks about deity worship. The purport talks about deity worship, but I wanted to sort of zoom in and discuss this point about, we have this. On one hand, we are told to follow certain rules and regulations, like chant a certain number of rounds and, worship in a particular way and things like that. And then there is on the other side, there is this, we are also told to perform bhakti with love, to worship Krishna with love, to chant with love, right? So how do these two things, how do these two things sit together? Too much rules and regulations, focus on too much rules and regulations is also, it makes it boring and it makes it very plain and dry. At the same time, too much heartful devotion, one extreme, that also makes it, then there is something Prabhupada writes in one of the other purports that there's, some devotees, they want to skip over the rules and regulations and they want to express that spontaneity to Krishna, but they are not really at that level, but they want to do that. And he says these people are called as sahajiyas, and they don't care about the rules and regulations. They just care about, these spontaneous, they try to imitate these loving affections that Radharani experiences for Krishna and things of that nature. So there is one small clip I wanted to play of SB Keshav Maharaj. But before that, there are some hands raised, so we can hear their thoughts. Ritesh Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that I heard SP Keshav Maharaj about this while back. I think you were going to play same thing, so I will let you do that.
Okay.
Yeah, similar to what you were mentioning about Panchatrika Vidhi, like there has to be some processes that we go through to actually get into that heartful devotion. Yeah.
Correct, correct,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, this was in CNJ. I think we are referring to the same one.
yes, yes.
Yes, and Samaksh Prabhu, Vrinda Gopi Mataji, you have had your hand raised, or?
Same Prabhuji, love language.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Oh yeah, you were there when Gaur Kumar Prabhu discussed this. Anyway,
Yes.
I'll just make sure I am sharing audio. One sec. Share sound. Chrome. Share. Okay. Okay, if you guys can hear, then just give me a thumbs up.
The language of love. I really like that point. Speaking about language, I went to your temples, and I see behind you there's so many books, and there's a lot of books being distributed. And then when I came to your temples, they try to like give me this book, get my money, and they told me to surrender unto Krishna. So it seems like when I was growing up with Hinduism, it was kind of like, dil se, from your heart. You have to do it from your heart. But you guys have kind of almost like, you travel the world, and you guys almost like evangelized Hinduism. You guys have taken this thing that's coming from your heart and made it so like that's so rigid, like 16 rounds and this, and read this and do that and this. Why can't we just do it from our heart? And just whatever, if maybe I like chanting one day, Maybe I don't like chanting one day. Maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to do that. Why do we have all these rules and stuff?
Oh, good question. Thank you so much. This guy is intelligent. So the idea here is that firstly, there is no force. Nobody is forcing you. Nobody is twisting your arm. Nobody is insistent that you do this or that. But what we do is we lovingly encourage you. Just like your mom and dad. Did they ever tell you to do stuff that you didn't want to do?
Yes.
And did you later on realize that that was probably a good thing? Right. So ultimately, that kind of encouragement is coming from a good space. It's coming to you because they want to offer you something that has benefited them in their life, and they know that it will benefit you in your life if you take it up. So firstly, I would say instead of seeing it as force, see it as loving encouragement. Now, why is there such a defined path? Is it so many defined rules and regulations? You see, sometimes we have to learn to be natural. Did you ever learn how to ride a bike?
Yes.
Right. So it took some practice, right? And when you practiced, then you kind of fell over and you kept at it, then eventually you learned how to ride a bike and you didn't even have to think about it, right? Some of you may have learned an instrument. In the beginning, you have to go like, da, 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 da. You have to learn all the notes, right? And it's a bit annoying. But what happens is once you've learned the notes, then you can close your eyes and you can play the instrument and you can pour your heart out. So if you want to do really dil se, if you really want to do it from the heart, if you really want to express yourself, if you really want to show the best of yourself and do that in a mood of devotion to God, learning things in a systematic way helps you to do that. Like say, for example, you wanted to write a love letter to your girlfriend. Sorry, I don't want to get any personal here, but... Then if you never learn English, if you never learn grammar, if you never learned vocabulary, if you never went to the class and disciplined yourself to go through all those lessons, when you wanted to write her a letter, how much would you be able to express? So similarly, if we want to express our heart to God, then we go through a certain set of rules and regulations because that helps us to awaken our spontaneity like that.
We were mentioning...
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Any thoughts on that? Or is it crystal clear? Okay. Yeah, as mentioned, rules and regulations do play a role, and we can't jump to the hard part of it. And that is what Prabhupada also he in many of his purports, or overall that was Prabhupada's mood, that don't jump to these esoteric things. You can relish the pastimes, but at the same time have a focus on the particular defined rules, and which are meant for our elevation, right? We say regulative principles of freedom. It's very confusing to some people. Regulative principles of freedom, it's no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. It's all no, 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 no. How are you calling it regulative principles of freedom? Yeah. But then it's actually, by following these rules and regulations, we are actually uplifted, uh, and then that makes us free from the lower tendencies that we might have. It takes time, doesn't happen quickly. It might take lifetimes. But then that is why they are known as regulative principles of freedom, because they free us from what takes us away from our true spiritual potential. So that was about this. Any concluding thoughts on this? Yes, no matter how many times I hear this, it all sounds always fresh. Yeah, definitely, Mataji. That's very true. And I really suggest you all to read, hear that exchange, that Q&A that happened. That we saw one of the answers, but there are many questions asked, and they might seem very basic, very basic questions about spirituality, God, and things like that. But it's good to understand those things, and the way Maharaj conveys them is very down to earth. At the same time, it is very fresh and uplifting, as Mataji mentioned, and very logical. It makes sense when you hear them. So that is about that. So we are already 7 minutes past. I had one more question like that we could have discussed, but I think we'll keep this for some other day. So one of the things that Lord Shiva mentions is, my dear Lord, pure devotion service is even difficult for liberated persons to discharge, but devotion service alone can satisfy you. Who will take to the other processes of self-realization if he is actually serious about the perfection of life? Right. So the other processes here mean, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, etc. Even Krishna mentions karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga in Bhakti in Bhagavad Gita, right? And then bhakti yoga is also mentioned. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as the culmination of all the yogic paths. But does bhakti yoga mean that all these other paths are to be discarded? All the other statements that Krishna makes about karma, jnana, dhyana, ashtanga, etc., are they to be just discarded and thrown away? So that was the question I wanted to discuss, but since we are out of time, we'll not do that today. But yeah, if there are any concluding thoughts, dear devotees, before we conclude for today? Okay, I think we're good. So yes, vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।